Welcome to our final series, Viva la Vegetable with Danielle Gasper. We are so happy with the feedback we have received and are glad you have enjoyed the series. Before I introduce tonight's host, I invite you to watch this quick video highlighting Emunah.
My name is Menachem, and I wanted to tell you a little about myself and about how, because people like you, there is somewhere for children like me to go. In 1991, when I was 4, I made Aliyah, and since first grade, I have been living in boarding schools. My father left us when I was very young, and my mother had a hard time bringing me and my 4 brothers up on our own. We all had to go to children's home. All through my life I have been getting into lots of trouble without really thinking twice about it. In 7th grade I hardly had dealings with the police. I was breaking into places. I was getting into lots of fights, drinking, smoking, and felt times completely lost. I did not know what to do. I was sure that I would be thrown out of a full home, but they stayed with me. They never gave up on me. I did not know why.
בפנימיית אמונה עפולה מקבלים מעל ומעבר. מקבלים כאן חום ואהבה, יחס, חוגים למיניהם, 4 ארוחות ביום, טיפולים רגשיים גם כן, מדריכים שבאים ובאמת רוצים לעזור ורוצים לתת ורוצים ללמד אותך כל הדברים שדרושים לילד להצליח בחיים. המקום הזה הביא אותי למצב שבו אני יכול לעשות כל מה שאני רוצה. כי יש מישהו שיתמוך בי ויש מישהו שיעמוד מאחוריי ויש מישהו שילמד אותי. אחרי שסיימתי את הלימודים, אני התגייסתי ליחידה לוחמת בחרוב. השתתפתי בפעילות עופרת יצוקה. אחרי השירות הצבאי חיפשתי עבודה עם משמעות, לבוא ולהשקיע ולתת מעצמי את כל כולי, להעביר את זה הלאה, את מה שלימדו אותי. להיות מדריך זה להיות מורה דרך לחיים. אני לא רואה את זה כעבודה, אני רואה את זה כדרך חיים. אני חי במקום הזה, אני חי בתוך העבודה. וההשפעה על הילדים האלה היא אדירה. יש לי איזשהו ילד לקראת סוף שנה, היה להם עבודה בבית ספר של לכתוב מי גיבור החיים שלכם. והילד הזה בעצם בחר אותי כגיבור החיים שלו. וזה משהו שבאמת מילא אותי ונתן לי סיפוק. כבר 6 שנים כמעט, שאני מדריך כאן בפנימיית אמונה בעפולה. הכרתי כאן את אשתי שעשתה כאן שירות לאומי. היום אני ואשתי גרים פה בבית אמונה. החלטנו בעצם בשיתוף פעולה עם אמונה לפתוח קונדטוריה, וילדים עובדים בקונדטוריה עם שכר. הילדים ואשתי כמובן מקבלים סיפוק מזה. זה נותן לילד איזושהי מוטיבציה של אני כן יכול ליצור משהו, ואפילו אנשים מתענגים על מה שאני יוצר ומכין. פנימיית אמונה בעפולה בהחלט משנה חיים של אנשים. כל כולי, המשפחה שלי, סביב אמונה. אין דבר יותר טוב מזה שבאמת להיות שייך למשהו שאתה באמת מאמין בו.
For more information about any of our children's homes or other projects, please visit your local Emunah website. And now I'd like to introduce Danielle. Danielle has always been passionate about cooking, and growing up could always be found glued to the Food Network. Danielle decided to follow her passion and started her Instagram-based blog at Girl Gone Kosher, where she posts healthy and delicious recipes across various cuisines. Danielle also kickstarted her catering arm, Danielle's Table, where she focuses on small-scale catering, weekly meal services, and cooking demos. In her free time, Danielle can be found reading one of her many cookbooks. snooping the web for new recipes, or testing out new flavor combinations. A special thank you to Zev Gasner, Danielle's husband, for filming, and Shara Schwartz for moderating. Please send all questions to Q&A. Give it over to Danielle.
Okay. Thank you, Tzipora, for that introduction. And thank you so much, Emunah, for having me here tonight. I'm so excited and so honored and can't wait to cook all things vegetables with you guys. So as you mentioned, I have a small scale catering business here in Toronto where I focus on obviously small scale catering, prefix meals and cooking classes and so forward. So I guess we should start. So we're making 3 dishes today. We're making a cauliflower adobo, which is obviously a play on chicken adobo. It's a vinegary, creamy chicken dish, but we're using cauliflower today. It's tangy, it's delicious. We're making a whole charred roasted eggplant, which is, if I make this for you, I love you. And we are also making Memphis dry rub mushrooms. So we'll get there in a second. So let's start with the cauliflower. For our cauliflower adobo, what we're going to do is I have a whole head of cauliflower that I've chopped into bigger bite-sized pieces, so not super small. And I'm gonna take some olive oil and I'm gonna drizzle on 2 tablespoons of olive oil. That looks good. And then I'm going to season the cauliflower with just black pepper. We're not going to use any salt right now, just because we're putting in a lot of soy sauce into the sauce. So there's a lot of salt in there. Give it a good mix. Wash your hands. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our cauliflower and we're going to put it in the oven on broil. We're not looking to cook the cauliflower. We're just looking to get really nice charred bits on the outside of the cauliflower. It just gives the cauliflower more of a deeper texture and flavor, and anything charred always tastes better. It brings out the natural sweetness of vegetable. So I'm just gonna go pop this into my oven on broil for about 3 to 5 minutes. Also, I put that in the highest rack to the element of my oven. So it's on the highest rack. So now let's make the sauce. So in a bowl or a little mixer, we have 1/3 of a cup of white vinegar. That seems like a lot, but it's really not. Then to that, we're gonna add in 1/2 cup of full fat coconut cream, coconut milk. When I see non-fat coconut milk in the grocery store, I walk by it, I pretend like I don't see it, I don't know it. Full fat is the way to go. It's creamy, it's delicious, so use that. So we're adding.
Danielle, we have a question from Ronit.
Yeah.
Any specific kind of vinegar?
White vinegar.
Okay.
Yeah, use white vinegar here. I haven't tried it with a rice wine vinegar yet, but white vinegar works best. So we have 1/3 of a cup of white vinegar, 1/2 cup of coconut cream. We're gonna start with 1/4 cup of soy sauce. I know I'm gonna add more, but you can never take away what you add. So let's start with 1/4 cup and then we can add more as we go. I'll probably add in 2 to 3 more tablespoons, but I like to start like this. And then we're gonna add in 1/4 cup of honey or maple syrup. Either work perfectly fine. I like using honey just because I think it makes the sauce a little more sticky. But if you're vegan, maple syrup is a great substitute, as well as agave nectar. I haven't used rice malt syrup before, but I'm sure that would be great too.
Another question, Danielle, from Anne. Any substitutions for the coconut cream?
Okay, I knew someone was gonna ask that. There are substitutes for it. You can definitely use a soy milk, an almond milk, and if you wanna be really authentic, you can use a buttermilk. I haven't actually seen a kosher buttermilk, but that's why I'm using a coconut milk. But you can try with all sorts of non-dairy milks, non-milks, and play with it. Okay, so I'm just gonna give this a little stir. It doesn't need to be blended perfectly because the heat from the pan is gonna do the work for us. Okay, I'm gonna also add in about half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. I like things a little spicier. If you don't like spice, don't add them. Okay. So our sauce is done. Now I'm just gonna go get my cauliflower. And I'll show you what it looks like. So my cauliflower is done. It's not at all cooked, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. My hands are so not sensitive to heat. Okay, so I want a little char on my cauliflower. That's all I want. You'll see when you cook it in the sauce, it makes a big difference. So I'm just gonna put this to the side. And I'm gonna put the sauce to the side as well. Okay, I'm jumping dishes now. Now we are gonna start our Memphis dry rub mushrooms. And if you have any questions about any of the cauliflower, you can always keep asking. Okay. So this is my favorite dish. So I have mushrooms here. I have oyster mushrooms and I have portobello mushrooms that I just ripped into bigger chunk bite-sized pieces. They're gonna shrink in the oven, so make sure they're a little bit bigger than what you think you would want. If it were up to me, I would have used like a lion's mane mushroom, which looks like really, really crazy, but the grocery store didn't have any. So work with what you have. It all tastes the same and it's all delicious. So what I'm gonna do is I have my oil and my Worcestershire sauce in a bowl here. And I have my spice mixture in a bowl here. This is brown sugar, onion powder, garlic powder. I wrote it down. Garlic powder, hot paprika, cumin seeds, and black pepper, if I said black pepper already. This makes a lot of extra dry rub, and I'm happy about that because I'll keep this in my cupboard. That's my dog. I'll keep this in my cupboard, and I'll add this to salmon some days. I'll add this to chicken. I'll add this to meat. I'll add this to my popcorn. So keep this in your cupboard. So what you're gonna do, very, very easy. You're going to take your mushrooms and you're going to dip it in your oil and Worcestershire mixture. Everyone says that word a little different. And then you're just going to dump it and mix it into your dry rub mixture. And make sure that that rub gets in all the nooks and crannies of the mushroom, because you want that flavor in every bite.
On the subject of mushrooms, how do you wash your mushrooms? Eve wants to know.
So when I'm cooking for me and my husband at home, I just take a damp paper towel and I'll lightly brush the mushroom. You don't want to really soak the mushroom so much. You don't want the mushroom to absorb all that water. So a light cloth will do the trick. A light damp cloth will do the trick. If I'm cooking for people, I'll run it under water and I'll maybe sometimes use vinegar to get off all the dirt.
And a couple of substitution questions. Would you substitute white or baby Bella mushrooms? Roseanne wants to know.
Any sort of mushrooms totally work here. These mushrooms are just a little larger, so the cooking time may vary. So we're going to cook this at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And these mushrooms, because they're bigger, are going to cook for around 30 minutes. If your mushrooms are smaller, they'll probably cook in 20 minutes.
And Melissa wants to know, lastly, if what vegetables you can use if somebody's allergic to mushrooms.
Cauliflower is fantastic in this dish. Even broccoli would be really, really yummy. Any vegetable that can hold its shape will work totally fine. Those are all good questions. Okay, we're almost done. And I love using Worcestershire sauce in here.
Any substitutions for that if people want?
Yeah. And use a soy sauce. Soy sauce would work totally fine. Anything that's a little salty. So even if you didn't want to use a soy sauce, you could honestly just use olive oil and then dip it in here, dip it in your spice mixture. But the Worcestershire sauce just adds another layer of flavor.
Amanda wants to know, how about a little miso?
Yeah, miso would totally work too. Anything that's a little salty. Miso would be great, actually. Miso would be really, really yummy. And yeah, definitely save this spice mixture. I mean, you don't have to do it like this. You don't have to dunk the mushrooms in it. You can put half the mixture aside, but for the sake of this video.
And Danielle, while you have a minute, somebody wanted to know, Rosette wanted to know, from the previous recipe, almond or soy milk is looser in consistency than coconut milk. So how would that work?
It just wouldn't be as creamy. You'll see when we cook, it turns into almost like a curry-like consistency. Your sauce will just be a little more watery. But that's you can use a heavier milk, but if you don't want to use that and you're using a soy milk or an almond milk, just know that it will taste totally fine. It just won't be as thick.
Mm-hmm.
These are all really good questions.
And is it coconut milk or cream? I don't remember what I said, but Nicole would like to know.
It's all the same. So I'm using coconut milk, but I'm just using the cream on top. So I'm using coconut cream.
Oh, is that so? It's the same thing?
Yeah, so coconut milk, when you buy like real coconut milk in a can, it's not really manufactured, it's just real coconut milk. You're gonna get coconut water on the bottom, you're gonna get coconut milk on top, you're gonna get coconut cream on the very top. So I'm using the coconut cream.
And what would be the ratio? Sorry, the question is, the ratio for almond or soy milk instead of coconut milk? I think that was the question.
The exact same, so half a cup.
Okay.
Yeah, the exact same. Okay, so our mushrooms are done. This is what they look like. We're gonna pop these into a 400-degree oven right now for about 30 minutes. I'm gonna check on them in 30 minutes. The cameraman can turn the camera if he wants. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in the middle rack of my oven. I think that's best. Sometimes I'll put it a little higher up, but the middle rack should be totally fine. Okay, I'm gonna set a timer so I don't forget, because I will forget. Okay. Now we can get on to fun stuff, the cooking. So we're gonna hold off on the eggplant right now. We're gonna start with the cauliflower adobo. So I have a pan here. This is a skillet, a high side skillet, and this works perfectly for this dish. If you don't have a pan like this, a medium-sized pot works totally fine. Just make sure that it's big enough to support all your cauliflower. Okay, so I'm gonna put my pan on a medium-high heat. Get a little hot. And we're not gonna add any salt to this dish just because our soy sauce, that's doing the job for us. We're gonna let our pan get hot, and then we're gonna add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. You don't need so much here. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do is I have my aromatics. So I have 2 shallots that I just quartered, and I have 6 garlic cloves. Really, I like to mince my garlic cloves, but honestly, I was so lazy before, I just smashed them, and that's totally fine. They'll cook in the sauce. So our pan's hot. We're gonna add in our shallot and our garlic. And we're gonna let this cook for around 2 minutes. And you wanna stir because you don't want your garlic to burn, because burnt garlic tastes awful. So we're stirring our shallots and our garlic. And then once this cooks, we're gonna add in our cauliflower, and then we're gonna add in our sauce. And we're gonna let our sauce come to a boil, and then we're gonna bring it back down to a simmer, put the lid on, and then we're gonna let it do its thing, let the cauliflower get to know the sauce, and we're gonna walk away. It's a really easy dish. This is why, because cooking with vegetables can be easy, and it also can be hard. You just always have to take that extra layer of care when you're cooking with your vegetables. That's why we chard the cauliflower first. If we were to just dump in raw cauliflower, it would taste good, but it's gonna taste better. Shallots and our garlics. Once you start to smell the shallot and garlic, that's when you know it's ready. So I smell it, I know it's ready. The garlic still has its color. My husband's making a face because shallots and garlic cooking just smell delicious. So we're gonna add in our cauliflower. And I'll bring the camera over once it starts cooking. Now I'm just gonna turn the heat down for a second. I don't want the sauce to splash all over me. And I'm gonna add in, you know what? You're supposed to also add in a 1/4 cup of water to the sauce. So I'm gonna go add that right now. Okay, a 1/4 cup of water. I just quickly added into the sauce, and I'm gonna add this whole thing into the pan. Okay, I'm gonna give it a stir. Now I'm going to bring the heat up to a boil. And I'll bring you over in a second so you can see. What the heat is doing now is it's melting all that coconut cream so you don't see any lumps. So it looks nice now. It doesn't look like that gross lumpy sauce that we just had a minute ago. I'm just gonna bring you over quickly because I want to show you something. This is what it looks like. I want it to be a little bit darker than that. So I'm gonna add in a little bit more soy sauce. We said that we were gonna add in more. This is where I'm gonna add it in.
Danielle, would this be a main or a side?
Just getting to that.
Okay.
During a weeknight, I would serve this as my main, and I would make rice and beans as the side. White rice. I know that there's much healthier rices out there, but this dish is so flavorful that you don't need the nuttiness of a black rice or a brown rice. White rice will do perfectly fine. And then if I was serving this on Shabbos, I would also serve it with a rice and a bean for a vegan. And then I would serve like a sesame crusted tofu. And what I would do is I would take my tofu and I would dip it into this sauce before, and then I would dip it into sesame seeds. So it was completely coated. And then I would either bake it in the oven or pan fry it. And the sesame seeds will turn really, really nutty. And that goes perfectly well with this cauliflower. So did that answer the question?
Yes. And also Anne wants to know, when do you add a cup of water and to what?
You add a cup of water to the sauce before you add it into the dish. So when I was adding all the vinegar and the soy sauce before, that's when you add it in. So my dish is at a boil. I like what I see. I like the color. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to put the lid on it, and I'm gonna turn it down to a simmer, and I'm gonna let it simmer. I'm gonna let it do its thing. I'm not gonna bother it. Magic will happen, I promise. Okay, so let's go back to over here. So just to recap what we've done so far, we have our Memphis dry rub mushrooms. Those are in the oven. Those are getting crispy. We love it. Our cauliflower is on the stove. It's getting to know the sauce. They're becoming friends. Okay, now for the charred eggplant. I love this dish so much. If I make this for you, it's because I truly, truly love you. When it was like my first big vacation I ever went on. I was about 9 years old, and my grandfather took my whole family to Israel. And we went out for breakfast the first day that we got there. I think it was breakfast. And I tried a tomato. And I was so confused because tomatoes don't taste like this in Canada. Like, I have never tasted anything like this. It was so sweet. It was so crisp. My mind was blown. So that's when I realized, like, oh, food tastes different around the world. And then later that trip, we went out for dinner. And the table next to us, like, my mind was blown with this. The table next to us got this charred eggplant dish. They literally took a whole eggplant and put it on the fire at the side of the restaurant. Then they brought it to the table, they sliced it open, and they like put on so much fun stuff. Tomatoes, tahina, like za'atar, olive oil, all these delicious ingredients. And I was like, what? To an eggplant? So that's where this dish comes into play. We're literally gonna recreate that. It is fun, it's exciting. You make this with people that you love, you get into it, you dip your pita in it, you dip your hummus in it, you dip everything in it. So let me just get my serving platter. I'm out of breath from being so excited. This is what happens. I get excited talking about food that I feel like I'm working out. Okay, so I roasted my eggplant in the oven on broil for 40 minutes. Let me catch my breath. Okay, I roasted this in the oven for 40 minutes. And then what I did is I put it in a strainer and I put it in my sink because the juices that come out of this are bitter. You don't want to eat that. So let it strain in your sink or in a bowl for like 20 minutes. If you have more time, do that. If you don't, 20 minutes is totally fine. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our eggplant, we're gonna put it on our serving platter. Usually I would make more than one eggplant, but it's just me and my husband here. So I'm just gonna make one. If I was making this for Shabbos and more people and it was like COVID still, I would put one eggplant on everyone's plate and serve it as a dip, as an appetizer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a knife and I'm gonna slice down the middle of the eggplant, making sure not to cut through the whole eggplant. And then I'm gonna open it up. Now, when you're roasting your eggplant, you wanna roast it to the point where you think you completely burnt it. Like, there is no hope in this eggplant anymore, it's ruined. It's not, that's good. You want it to get that burnt because the inside is so silky. Kind of looks like a branzino, but it's eggplant. Okay. Here are my condiments. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take a fork and I'm just gonna evenly spread out the eggplant. You can peel the eggplant if you want, like the skin off of it, like this, and save this and then add it to, next time you make a tahina sauce, add this and your tahina sauce will be charcoal color. So you can always save that. That's just a quick tip. So I am spreading my eggplant. I'm making it one layer and thin. That looks perfect to me. So it looks like this. And now we're gonna dress it up. So I'm just gonna put this to the side. I'm gonna bring my cutting board and I'm first gonna add my tomatoes because they're the largest item of food that I'm putting on top of my eggplant. I'm gonna add my tomatoes. Usually if this were the summertime or if I was in another country, I would use a tomato off the vine, but we're in Toronto and these are the only tomatoes right now that taste good. So I'm just gonna have my tomatoes. And if anyone has any questions about this, please ask.
I do have a question. What can be used instead of za'atar? Rosette wanted to know earlier.
Any spice you want. Cumin could be really, really nice. You don't even have to use it. It's just, I like it, so I'm gonna use it. If you don't like za'atar, don't use it. Any spice that you want, paprika. What we're gonna do is we're actually gonna mix the za'atar with an olive oil. So it's a za'atar olive oil. So you could even use a garlic powder. Really anything is totally fine here. All ingredients to go on top of this eggplant are totally optional. Okay, so I have my tomatoes here. Will you just grab the salt? Thank you. Okay, so I have some salt here. I'm just gonna salt my tomatoes. Okay, give it a mix. And then I'm gonna add my tomatoes, so you can see, right on top of the eggplant. Okay. And let it get all over the platter. It should be messy. It should be fun. It doesn't have to be so symmetrical. Like, we're not making super sophisticated dishes right now. So this is not the time to make sure that everything is perfect. Then I would usually go in with a tahina sauce, except I found this tahina and it is so good. You don't need any like water or lemon to make it less bitter. This is so delicious. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pour it on top.
Danielle, Katerina wants to know if you can use frozen cauliflower florets for the cauliflower adobo.
Okay, you can. You totally can. It will just be a little mushier. Your cauliflower will be a little mushier. Our cauliflower is not going to be super mushy. It's still going to have some crunch to it, which I like, but you can totally do that. That's the best part about cooking, is it doesn't have to be so strict. You use what you have, you use what you want, and you use whatever is easiest for you. So we have our eggplant, we have our tomatoes, we have our tahina, and then we have our za'atar and our olive oil. I wanted to show you guys two za'atars that I like to use. I like to use this one, like your classic Israeli one, when I'm mixing anything with oil. I think this has a really lovely color and it makes it really green. And then this za'atar is just like your classic American brand. I found it at Loblaws, and I add this to any salad that I make. It makes every salad taste delicious. So I just wanted to show you guys this because it's really, really yummy. There's like some sumac in it. I don't think there's sumac in this one, but that one's like more American. This one's real Israeli. So I'm gonna take a tablespoon of my za'atar. I'm gonna add it to my dish. And then I'm gonna take about 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Add it, and I'm gonna
Danielle, many people have been asking what the brand is of the tahina that you just mentioned and where to find it.
Okay, this is Mighty Sesame Co. I found this at Nortown. It was crazy expensive. Would I buy it again? Probably not, but it was a really, really nice treat. Another brand that I love is, I don't know really how to pronounce it, T-A-A-M, TAM. That's another brand that I love. It's a lightly toasted sesame seed. So that's what I like. I don't like anything dark roasted because I find it too bitter. So this and the TAM's like what I normally use. It's like a massive tub and it's delicious. It's lightly roasted and it's a really light taste. It's not bitter, but this is delicious. If you find it, try it. It's such a nice treat. I use this for my special dishes like this. Okay, then I have my olive oil and za'atar. I'm gonna give it a little mix. I'm going to, here, let me move this because I don't need this anymore. I'm going to drizzle this all over the eggplant, and as well, I'm gonna get it all over the plate. And it's a really lovely green color. And don't be shy with your olive oil and your condiments on top of this. Be liberal. Okay, and then I have my herbs that I'm using today. I'm gonna use mint and basil. I think they go beautifully with this dish. If you find that if you buy mint or if you buy basil and you don't use it and it just goes to waste, don't use it. Use parsley, use dill. I don't want you to waste food, but I love using mint and I love using basil. I add it to like sandwiches. I'm just gonna throw this on top. I'm not even gonna think about it. I'm just gonna throw it on. And you'll see when this is done, like why you want to eat this with people that you love. Basil, I'm just going to quickly tear. I don't need all of that.
Danielle, would you add olive oil if using cumin or other spice?
Yeah, I would add the cumin to the olive oil before, so it makes it a darker color. I'm using olive oil that I like to eat. So if you don't like olive oil, don't use it. Just use your tahina. So this is what this dish looks like. It's so beautiful. Maybe put the camera down a bit. It's so beautiful. It's so delicious. You can serve this on a little plate to everyone because it's COVID right now and people don't want to share. And people on Shabbos can dip their challah into it. They can put a little salad on the side. If this is not COVID, what I would do is I would get a large long platter. I would do like 5 eggplants and I would do this along the whole platter. And I would just put it in the center of the table. So when your guests come to your table, they see this beautiful eggplant dish. And it truly is like a show-stopping dish. And it's just as delicious. So I'm gonna put this to the side. Does anyone have any questions about this before I put it away? No? Okay. Okay. So our eggplant's done. Like that's how quick it is. It's so easy. It's so yummy. You don't have to think about it. Now our mushrooms are in the oven and our cauliflower is on the stove. So I'm just gonna go over to the cauliflower and I'm gonna make sure it's the right color still that I want. See if I want to add more sauce, and I'm also going to taste it now. This looks really, really yummy to me. I'll bring you over in a second. The cauliflower is starting to take on the color of the sauce, and that's what we want. Let me move this so you can see more. Okay, I'm going to bring you over. So that's what it's looking like. We still want this to be a little darker in color, the cauliflower, and we want the sauce to be a tiny bit darker. So I'm gonna add in a little more because I've made this dish so many times. I know it needs a little more, but if I were you, I would taste it now. Okay. So I've probably added in 2 more tablespoons than when I put it into the bowl before I put it into the sauce. So far I've added 1/4 cup and 2 tablespoons.
Danielle, Gary wants to know what was in that little jar.
What jar?
I don't know. Gary, do you want to specify? And in the meantime, somebody did want to know earlier about the cooking times for roasting eggplants in the oven.
Okay, I'll answer that in 1 second.
And the temperature, yeah, when you have a chance.
Right now, I'm just gonna add in a few bay leaves to the sauce. I don't wanna add it in right away because I don't want the sauce to be too rich. But right now, for like the last 5 to 10 minutes, it adds a really nice flavor. So just give that a stir. Okay, so you asked the question. Your question was temperature and time for the mushrooms?
For the roasted eggplant.
Okay. The eggplant, I put it in my oven on the middle rack on broil high. I did 40 minutes total and I flipped it halfway. So 20 minutes on one side, 20 minutes on the other side. It's gonna look when you take it out of the oven that you completely burned your eggplant and what are you gonna do? You don't have enough time to go to the store. That's what you want because when you open it up, it's gonna be so silky. But make sure you put it into a strainer and let it strain to get rid of all those bitter juices. And then were you talking about the brand of the za'atar?
Someone did ask about that. I don't know if it's the same jar that they were speaking about. Some maybe they specified. No, not yet. But someone also asked about the za'atar.
I'll show you quickly. This is what I like to use when I'm mixing za'atar with a fat. So any olive oil, just because I really like the color. But this za'atar, I like to use as a salad topper.
I think that may have been it
This one.
we were speaking about. Yeah.
More oregano-y. It doesn't taste at all the same as this. I find this one to be a little more bitter, but this is really delicious to add to American-y food. So any salad, just put this on top, and I promise it will take a salad from like 5 to 10. Okay, so I'm just checking on my cauliflower. And it's getting darker. So I'm gonna taste it. And always taste as you go, because you never know if it's gonna need a little more of extra of something. Okay, to me that tastes absolutely delicious. It's very vinegary, it's very creamy. It's exactly what you think of a chicken adobo tasting like, obviously with cauliflower. It hits like the back of your mouth first and you're like, yummy. So that was yummy. Yes, this is a President Choice za'atar. I got it at Loblaws. I think someone just asked that. President Choice at Loblaws. Okay, so I'm just gonna check on my mushrooms right now because I think they're almost done. And I actually think they are done. Let me open the oven and check. Yeah, actually, it's just my hands. You could use a few more minutes. This is actually almost done. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, we do. So Ronit wants to know, will it work if the eggplant is charred on an open gas flame?
Oh, of course. Sorry, I didn't mention that. You could totally do that on a barbecue. You could also do it on your stove. The barbecue would be a little less time and the stove would be the same time as the barbecue. So probably 20 minutes total of you flipping it over. I like to use my oven just because I don't want to think about it. But obviously doing it on a barbecue adds like another layer of flavor. So if you want to go and brave the weather, totally do that.
The barbecue was asked about before as well, so I'm glad that you mentioned that. And Ruth and David would like to know, can you substitute oregano for za'atar?
Oh yeah, oregano and za'atar are totally interchangeable. My kitchen that I cook at Chabad Bayview, is a sesame-free kitchen. So I can't use za'atar, obviously, so I use oregano. That's a great question. Anything else?
I think that's it for now, but I'm going to review the chat.
Okay. So our eggplant is done. Our cauliflower actually is done. Just make sure before you serve it, you get rid of those bay leaves that we just put in. Because no one wants to eat that. They're not edible. And I'll show you how to serve this actually now because it's ready. Okay, so I'm just going to go grab a bowl. I like to serve this in a white bowl. I know that sounds a little crazy, but the cauliflower has a lot of color on it that if I serve this in a color bowl, the dish would get lost. So always think about that when you're serving a dish. Like, what color are you serving it on? What color is the vegetable? What color is the meat? What color is anything? It makes a difference to the eye, and it makes your guests want to eat it more. I'm just gonna serve this in a bowl. I like to serve things family style. When people come to my house, I want it to be relaxed. I don't want people to feel like they can't eat certain things. So don't be so stressed when you're thinking about that. I'm adding it to a bowl here. I put in 4 bay leaves. So I know that I have to take out 4 bay leaves. Okay. And what I'm gonna do, this is what it looks like. Sorry, I'll flip the camera down. It's a better angle. It's steamy, so it's hard to see. But what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take one of the bay leaves, and I'm gonna put it on top just so people know that there's bay leaves in here. I like to do that with really anything that I cook. I like to, if I use a certain herb in something, I always like to add it on the serving platter so people know, like, oh, this has dill in it. I don't like dill. Or, oh, this has oregano in it. I don't like oregano, just so they know. Okay, so we have our cauliflower here. We have our eggplant over here. And my mushrooms are just about done. Good timing. So I'm gonna go and get those out of the oven. Now I'll talk about fun ways that I would serve this. Okay. So this is what my mushrooms look like. They're so crispy. They're delicious. So I'm just gonna let them cool over here for a second. And I can talk about how I like to serve these. So if I'm serving these for kids, they're totally kid friendly. I would go to the dollar store and get those little baskets, and I would put some in the little baskets, and that's how I would serve them as an appetizer if I didn't want to do it family style. If I was doing this family style, I would dump it on a big platter. I would have little containers of, I hate ranch, but I would serve it with ranch, and people could dunk them in or put it on their plate. Or I would service, I know the Super Bowl just happened, but this is a great dish to serve a Super Bowl or just like to nosh on. Or when people come to your house, you can have these ready so that they don't eat your dinner before dinner has actually started. That's a big one too. You know, when you have family over and they all eat your dinner before your dinner started. That's always fun. Okay, so I have a platter here and I'm gonna put my mushrooms on that platter. I'll just use this. These are, they're not spicy, they're a little sweet. They're exactly how you picture a Memphis rib to taste, just with mushrooms. And again, if you don't like mushrooms, any vegetable that holds its shape, so a cauliflower, a broccoli, anything really like that. I wish you could all taste this right now. That's the only bad part about cooking from home and this whole pandemic.
Danielle, we have a few questions. The recipe for the cauliflower reads to simmer it uncovered, but you had it covered. Which is the best way?
So, does it say, it says uncovered?
That's what Esther wrote.
Okay. I mean, if what I wrote, then that's the way to do it. I probably just wanted it to cook a little faster right now.
Okay. And could you have finished the cauliflower in the oven uncovered instead of the stove?
With the sauce, you mean? I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
I would keep it on the stove.
If oh, do you need to get that?
It's my timer.
If Esther wants to know if cauliflower adobo simmers, covered or open?
So I did it covered right now just because I wanted it to cook a little faster. I forget what I wrote on, actually I have it right here. Let me make sure. Yeah, so simmer it uncovered. So we cooked that in about 10 minutes. If you were to do it uncovered, it would take about 15 minutes. Just when you are cooking it, stir it every so often just to make sure that the cauliflower is getting color on both sides. Any other questions?
I think we're good for now.
So let's just go over what we have. We have our Memphis dry rub mushrooms, crispy, delicious. You bite into them and they're juicy on the inside. They're the perfect play on a Memphis rib. We have our cauliflower adobo, which is a pop of flavor when you take a bite of the cauliflower. The flavor is like seeped into all the nooks and crannies of the cauliflower. And then we have my favorite dish, the dish close to my heart, a charred eggplant dish, which is silky. You eat this with people that you love. I know I keep saying that, but I truly mean it. And yeah, these are how I like to play with vegetables in the kitchen. Vegetables are cool. Don't be afraid to use them and have fun in the kitchen. And thank you all so much for having me.
We do have some questions. If you have time, would that be cool? Okay. So my sister Alana asked about a tofu recipe that you mentioned. She wanted to know about that. What was that recipe?
Okay, so the cauliflower, if I was serving this, if I had someone who was vegan or vegetarian for dinner, I would take a tofu steak, which is just thickly sliced tofu, and I would dip it into the sauce, the cauliflower adobo sauce, and then I would take that and I would dip it into sesame seeds. So I would completely coat the tofu in sesame seeds, so it was completely coated. You didn't know it was tofu, and then I would either bake it at 425 for around like 20 minutes and flipping it halfway, or I would pan sear it to get it crispy on all sides. And you don't really taste the flavor of the sauce when you're cooking the tofu. It just adds like a little nice flavor, so you know that there's coconut there. So the two dishes together go really well. Like they're supposed to be eaten together.
Cool. And Miriam wants to know, can the mushrooms be served Friday night after being in the warming oven?
Yeah, they'll stay crispy for a really, really long time. They'll stay crispy. This is also a really good dish to bring out, like after you serve dinner, after you serve dessert, and if people are over and they're still drinking, bring this out a little later on as like a midnight snack, and it will go over very well.
And Ruth and David asked, can it be reheated or frozen? I think they're referring to the mushrooms, but I'm not sure.
If you want to freeze these, you totally can freeze them and just reheat them at a high temperature, so at a 425-degree oven, until they're crispy again. So probably around 15 minutes. Or pop them into the air fryer. I don't have that, but if you have that, use that.
And what temperature do you bake the tofu, and for how long?
So the tofu I would do for 400 degrees for around 20 minutes, and I would flip it halfway. If I was doing it on a pan, I would add a little olive oil to the pan, and I would sear it for around 3 minutes on each side on a medium-high heat.
And Delia wants to know, my family does not like cauliflower. Can you do it with broccoli?
You can do it with broccoli. Another vegetable that you could do it with is eggplant. If you're doing it with a softer vegetable, put the sauce onto the stove after you put the shallot and the garlic, and let this sauce reduce for around 10 minutes, and then put the eggplant in, because the eggplant doesn't need as much time to cook, and we don't want the eggplant to disintegrate in the sauce. We want it to still hold its shape. So if you're using a softer vegetable, put the sauce in first, let it come to a boil, let it get to know each other, and then add in your vegetable.
And my apologies earlier, Ruth and David were actually referring to the cauliflower, not the mushrooms, when they were asking about being frozen and reheated.
Reheat the cauliflower?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually made the cauliflower for a cooking demo the other night, and it's frozen in my fridge right now. It reheats perfectly on the stove. Just let it come to room temperature before you put it onto the stove to reheat, and then put it in the pan, or honestly put it in the microwave if you don't have time, and it still tastes so yummy.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah, of course.
Danielle, first of all, I just want to tell you, everyone thinks you're amazing and adorable. So you're double A's today. So the only down part is that we didn't all get samples, but we're going to make you come back and make samples for everyone. So that'll be your next job for us. So everyone so enjoyed it. So many people are saying, I'm making it tonight, I'm making tomorrow, I'm making Friday night. So you're going to be on everyone's mind for the next few days.
I'm so happy. I hope you guys enjoy it just as much as my family does. And let me know if you make it and tell me what you think.
I'm sure everyone will. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in to these beautiful cooking lessons that we've had. And on behalf of Emunah, thank you so much, everyone, and we hope you enjoyed it. And Danielle, thank you so much. It was amazing.
Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your evening.